To be honest, when I think of Vanderbilt football, I neither think of quarterbacks or winning. Yes, they did have Jay Cutler back in the day, but ever since then, it has been tough sledding for the Commodores at the quarterback spot. A couple years ago, they had a guy by the name of Kyle Shermer who was pretty good, but besides him, the program has struggled to trot out a good quarterback, and that is probably one of the reasons why they have not been able to win. Obviously, they're also in the SEC, and they're very far behind in talent, but having a good quarterback would be a huge first step for head coach Clark Lea, as he is trying to build a national title contender in Nashville. His words, not mine. Well, Vanderbilt may have finally found that guy. Just a couple days ago, we witnessed him have an incredible game as the Commodores killed Hawaii. He had 4 total touchdowns, and he looked like the kind of player they have been lacking for the last few years. In today's video, we're going to talk about their new starting quarterback, Mike Wright, his journey to getting to this point, how good he could be at Vanderbilt, and why he could be the savior of Vanderbilt football. Before we can talk about him, be sure to subscribe to the channel if you are new. We have a lot of college football content coming your way this season, and you're not going to want to miss out on all of that. If you want to support the channel, be sure to leave a like and a comment, and also don't forget to share this video with your friends. And also don't forget to turn on post notifications so you never miss when I upload. Now, let's talk about the rise of Mike Wright. In order to understand how Mike Wright got to this point, we first need to go back in time and meet his father. His name was also Mike. He did not play college football, but he was very much a part of a college football program. Back in the 90s, his father actually tutored Tennessee football players and was nicknamed Big Mike and fell in love with the Volunteers program. While he was there, he'd later meet his wife, and they would move over to the great state of Georgia. She became a teacher, and he became an engineer. Flash forward about 20 years, and their son would become a quarterback for Vanderbilt, so they had to start liking the black and gold instead of the orange. His father said, quote, "Mike likes to call Tennessee that orange school," and I say, okay, sure. For years, when Vanderbilt would upset somebody, I'd say congrats. You just got beat by a bunch of future doctors and lawyers. But now, I'm even cheering for them in sports other than football. I think God has a sense of humor. So yeah, his father would have to switch his ways, and his son would play quarterback for Vanderbilt, but we have a lot to talk about before we get to that point. At an early age, Mike began to excel at the game of football and garnered the nickname Larry the Lobster. His coach did not want parents coaching from the stands, so his father would call him that nickname during the game, so his coach wouldn't know what player he was referring to or what parent was saying it. The coaching would pay off for his sons, Allen and Mike, as they both eventually become college football players. Allen is now a cornerback at Vandy, and football has been something they've always shared together. His dad placed him at quarterback, and Mike fell in love with it. He said, quote, "That's how I started playing quarterback, and it was fun. I fell in love with just being out there. I've always played with my little brother. He's always played up an age group." Eventually, when Mike got to Woodward Academy in Atlanta, he blew up into a big-time quarterback prospect. He was wanted by a decent amount of big-time programs, but he decided he was going to commit to UCF. He chose the Knights over Ole Miss, Utah, Louisville, Kentucky, and Arkansas for one reason, and that one reason was Jeff Lebby. At the time, he was an up-and-coming coordinator, and Wright believed in him and Josh Heupel, so he became a Knight. Lebby is now one of the hottest names in college football coaching, as he's the offensive coordinator at Oklahoma. At the time, he was pumped to have Mike committed. Mike said, quote, "They were jumping up and down, and I thought Coach Lebby was going to cry, but he fought it back. Everybody was excited, and all the coaches called me and told me congratulations." Things were looking locked in at UCF for him until Lebby decided to move to Ole Miss. This, combined with the emergence of true freshman Dylan Gabriel, led him to decommit from the program. His little brother at the time was being recruited by Vanderbilt, so his little brother actually texted Derek Mason, and they began to recruit Mike super hard, but so did another school, and that school is Northwestern. Those two schools were both in need of a good quarterback who had a high GPA for their academic requirements, and Mike was the perfect candidate for it. But which school would he choose? Well, he had an interesting way of going about it. His little brother said, quote, "So we get home and Mike gets out his big old whiteboard. He was like a scientist scribbling all these notes on it. For an hour and a half, he's just talking, and we're just sitting here listening, just in awe of how deep in detail he went about each school. 3/4 of it wasn't even football, it was just school in general, such as rankings, internships, and stuff like that. I'm sitting here thinking, oh cool, we get to put on uniforms. At the time, I'm in 11th grade, and Mike's over here talking about his major, and that major, and double majoring, and so on and so on." Eventually, he decided that Vanderbilt was the school for him, and he had also offered his little brother, but the family hid that secret from him, so Mike's decision would not be swayed. Eventually, they both chose Vandy on the same day, and this was a huge moment for the family and the brothers. Wright was not a 4-star quarterback by any means, but he had 4-star numbers. He finished his senior season with 2,653 passing yards, 716 rushing yards, and 50 total touchdowns. The family would now have to throw away some of their Tennessee orange, but you'd have a long road to winning games and putting up numbers at Vandy, if that was even possible. According to 24/7 Sports, Wright was ranked right next to their other quarterback commit, Ken Seals. They had him as a 3-star recruit, the number 19 dual threat quarterback, and the 520th best player in the class of 2020. So how would Wright do at Vandy? Going into the 2020 college football season, they were under head coach Derek Mason, and Wright would have an opportunity to try to win the starting job right away. This unfortunately would not happen, as he would lose the job to his 2020 counterpart, Ken Seals. Seals had a solid freshman year, but obviously Vanderbilt football did not win a ton of games. Wright got an opportunity to play in 3 games in 2020, with his best performance coming against Kentucky, as he threw for a touchdown and ran for a touchdown. He ended up going 6 of 10 for 51 yards and a score, with 15 yards and a touchdown on the ground. Not an amazing start to his career, but he had shown flash of potential for the future. Going into 2021, they are now under head coach Clark Lee, who was the former defensive coordinator at Notre Dame and a Commodore alum. He was going to try and change the culture around, and everyone's spot was up for grabs, including the quarterbacks. Ken Seals would end up becoming the starting quarterback once again, but Wright would have an opportunity to play when Seals got hurt. A couple of games into the year, Seals would go down with that injury, and Wright was thrusted into the starting rotation. Against South Carolina, he threw for 200 yards with a touchdown, and then 2 weeks later, he had the best game of his freshman year. Against Missouri, he went 14 of 28 for 122 yards with 3 touchdowns. It gets better though. He also had 152 yards on the ground and nearly led them to an upset victory over the Tigers. They couldn't quite get the job done, but Mike showed that he was the future of the team. He threw 2 touchdowns against Kentucky the following week, had a career-high 241 yards in a loss to Ole Miss, and then had 2 touchdowns, one of which was a Hail Mary against Tennessee. This was a huge moment for Wright and his family, as they were in attendance for this game, and apparently when Mike completed that Hail Mary, a couple of their Tennessee friends cheered as well. Wright had basically solidified himself as the starting quarterback at this point, and he had shown that he could not only throw the ball, but he could run the ball, and he had confidence and was a great leader. He finished the 2021 season with 1,042 passing yards, 8 touchdowns, and 6 picks, with 376 yards on the ground and a score there. Obviously, those are not all conference numbers, but going into 2022, he would have an opportunity to win that starting job from day one. After a battle that went on for most of the summer, he was given the starting job by Clark Lee. Lee said, quote, "Vanderbilt wants to compete for national titles, and we want Wright to develop as a total quarterback, which he had. He has also demonstrated leadership abilities as well. We're excited for him to enter the fall as our starting quarterback. He knows that he has to earn that every day, and that's part of our covenant. On top of that, we're fortunate to have a second quarterback with a ton of game experience and starting experience in Ken Seals." Combining how Wright played with Seals' injury and his drop of production led him to being named the starting quarterback. Obviously, expectations are very low for Vanderbilt, as they're projected to finish 14th in the conference, and no expert predicted them to win a single game in the conference. Going into the season, I was pretty sure that wasn't going to happen either, but now I'm not so sure. In week 1 against Hawaii, Wright would go off. He completed 13 of 21 passes for 146 yards and 2 touchdowns. It didn't stop there though, as he also ran the ball 13 times for 163 yards and 2 scores as well, and he finished with the second longest run in school history, as he had an 87-yard touchdown. Vanderbilt beat Hawaii 63-10, and that is already 30 more points than they scored last season. Wright had complete confidence, threw the ball wherever he wanted, and ran the ball wherever he wanted. He took complete command of the offense, and he has that it factor that I haven't seen from a Vanderbilt quarterback ever. Yes, it could be an overreaction, but Mike says this is exactly how he expected it to go. In the post-game interview, he said, quote, "I think we just owned into our operation. That was the game plan coming in. That's just Vanderbilt football this year. Preparation is everything. We prepared really well, and we put it on display tonight." So yeah, Wright probably had the most electrifying performance of week 1, and the narrative is slowly starting to change around Vanderbilt football. He gives them the kind of weapon they haven't had in a long time. It seems the players are starting to buy into the culture, and it might be a little bit tougher to beat them. If that's the case, then you could potentially label Mike as the savior of the program, as if he has a good couple of years here and they start to win games, this could change the entire image of Vanderbilt, and that would be incredible. But what do you guys think? If you're a Vanderbilt football fan, what do you think of Mike Wright? If you're an SEC fan, what do you think of Wright and the Commodores? Do you think they're legit? Do you think they're terrible? or do you see some potential in them? Let me know down below. Let me know what player I can take a look at in my next video. And before you go, don't forget to subscribe, leave a like, comment your thoughts, and check out all my videos on the end screen. Hope to see you guys again soon, but until next time, peace.